What have your parents done that traumatized you but they've forgotten? My mother body shamed me for decades. I was always being compared to the other girls in my neighborhood and school. I had a terrible relationship with food, poor self-esteem, and that led to a horribly bad decision when it came to marrying my first husband. Imagine my surprise when I was visiting home one day and Mom had the old photo albums out. And there were pictures of me from infant through college, and a few years into my first marriage. And I was no bigger than anyone else. I didn't bother calling her out on it. I knew her answer would be I never said that, but she did. Mom broke the plate on my head, a boiling waterfall on my lap by accident, and she didn't move. She just sat there while my lap got bubbled burns from the boiling water. She spilled gasoline on her in front of us and threatened us to burn herself. She did a lot of things to me that she now doesn't remember any of them, as if part of her memories got deleted because of how bad her mental health was. And I don't care, she's a good mom now. She was having a rough time back then, but I don't know how I survived. I never wish any of this to my future kids. Anytime I would ever break or spill something, my mom would cuss me out in the worst ways possible, telling me she wishes I was never born, etc. Then after 20 minutes she would snap out of it and act like it never happened. Honestly, didn't think much of it, because where I am from, hitting and cussing out kids is considered normal. At least it was before Gen Z. But now looking back, I can totally see how that made me accept abusive behaviors in relationship later on in life. My mom was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. My driver's exam was on the same day we had to check her into the hospital, knowing that she would eventually die there because she was deteriorating quickly. I took her to the hospital, went and took my test, then went back to the hospital to see her. She had a card and flowers for me. In her fear, pain and confusion, she was still so focused on being a good mom and making me feel special. I miss her so much. My mother, who was a severe alcoholic, would beat the shit out of me all the time. She would also starve me. I was also never allowed to go out or talk to anybody. The list of things that she did went on and on and on and on and on. I went to the hospital more than once. To this day she insists that she was a great mother and didn't do anything wrong, and it was just my own teenage trauma. Less subtle one than others on here, but my dad fell asleep while watching a movie on TV. This was a while back when I was fairly young, and so I was asleep as well. When I woke up, the movie was over and there was an adult movie showing, as it was very late at night. This caused me to search out other adult movies at a very young age and impacted my relationship with adult films. My abusive stepdad threw gardening tools at my dog, and continuously hit him with a shovel until he was bleeding and injured. I'm pretty sure the reason was something along the lines of my dog getting into the trash bag in the backyard. This punishment was for the dog and for me, because I didn't watch or prevent my dog from getting in the trash in the first place. Once when I was in college, my mom demanded that I go help my dad shovel our driveway. I told her I had homework to do and didn't have time. She told me that if he had a heart attack and died doing it, it would be my fault. That was almost 15 years ago, and to this day, I think if he ever does die of a heart attack, it's going to be my fault. When I was 10, Mom drove a bunch of school kids to a field trip. We passed the movie theater W Love Story on the marquee. Someone said love means you never have to say you're sorry. Mom turns around W dead eyes and says that's a load of crap. I was mortified, but my friends thought it was hilarious. And she was right. My dad claimed until his dying day when I was 17 that he never hit me. Dude. You hit me on a Fridays in front of my great-grandmother for drumming with the silverware. It was really only once my mom took us and made it clear she'd leave if he ever did it again, but who are we trying to convince here? My dad would beat my mentally handicapped brother when he was a kid because he wouldn't do what my dad wanted him to do. They always gaslight me over it. When my dad was 92, he asked me what he had done to offend me. I told him he beat my brother, and his response was, "Yeah, I always felt bad about that. I'm gay." And my dad used to tell a specific story about threatening a gay man with a hammer because the gay man looked at him the wrong way. He told it often enough that I could tell to you myself and do all the physical gestures that went with the story. He now claims that I made that story up. My dad is pissed in my room. Like, the corner of my bedroom. He was shit-faced drunk and claims not to remember a detail about it, and I don't know if I'm naive to believe him on that front, but I do. He admits to a lot of the physical and sexual abuse he has done, but not that, for some odd reason. Anytime I've brought up my childhood trauma to my mom, no matter how big or small the trauma, she says something along the lines of "that didn't happen. I wouldn't do that. You must have dreamed it. Why are you being so mean to me? What have I done wrong?" So I guess, literally everything. Making a little fun about my body when I was 8 or 9 cause I was a bit chubby. We were at a lake that day. I was swimming again in public when I was 20 yo. Still feel a bit uncomfortable without a shirt, although I'm 30 now. Of course they don't remember and would have never done that. My mom would make negative comments about my body. Usually while I was trying on clothes in a dressing room. She's point out stretch marks, act shocked if I needed a bigger size. She also used to repeatedly say, "Why don't I just get a gun and go downstairs and shoot myself?" My sister and I were hit regularly with a belt until around puberty, and my mom also slapped me in the face and called me a slut at 12 for coming home 30 minutes late from hanging out at the neighbor's house. She claims to remember none of this. I don't believe her. After my dad died when I was 7, I was a mess. I was crying uncontrollably in the car and my mom was at the end of her rope. She needed me to stop. She yelled if I could afford to put you in therapy, I really didn't need therapy. I never got it. Very minor compared to some of these stories, but I find offhand remarks about something like your looks or intelligence can really stick with you, even if said just once. Don't insult your kids, folks. My mother didn't report an attempted rape when I was 9, so I kept having to see the teen who did it around the neighborhood, and I grew to believe that I must have done something to encourage it. They got mad at me and thought I was drinking and doing drugs when I almost unalived myself because of my bullies. They had the nerve to get mad at me and tell me years later they didn't do this. I was about 15-16 trying to cook myself noodles when I accidentally spilled some scalding hot water and burned myself. My dad called me a skank for it for some reason. I will never forget it. My parents don't seem to remember that my dad lost an eye as a result of my sister defending herself at 16 after he physically abused us for years. Nothing straight up abusive, but too many things that made me sad, cry, self-harm, etc. They've never abused me, but they're the reason I have depression. My mom left my sister 7 and I 9 at a park for 2 hours. Downtown Vancouver. Fucking scary. We hit every time a car drove by. Parents are oblivious to what they are doing when they're doing it. Why would they suddenly remember years later? Only your parents will look at you with a straight face and say, "I never yelled at you when you were a child." Mother told me at age 8 that I was the reason for my dad's depression. Still breaks my heart. Self-harm in front of me because I was full and couldn't finish my lunch. I was 9 years old. Declined to co-sign for my college loan, so my best friend's father co-signed on my behalf. My mom waited for me to get out the tub and whooped me butt ass naked. Butt and all. Basically, the 1980s and the bullshit that was tough love. Why make me dress up as Willy Wonka at my 4th birthday?